good session today. The topic is very exciting, topic is very interesting. It talks about the emerging era and who else than us can understand that yes, a new era is being uh, faced, and I think we are all facing that new normal, which we have encountered 3 months back, and now slowly we are getting to understand that this is something that is going to stay with us. This is something that has affected not only the health segment, but every aspect of the human relationship, human existence, be it the social, political, economical, financial, the corporate world. I can't think of a particular segment where this particular pandemic, this particular crisis has not touched upon. So it is also very imperative to understand that with this emerging era, what are the changes that are going to come, especially in terms of employment, in terms of the industry movement, labor laws, and we have dedicated speakers for that. Today, I'm going to focus on my discussion on employment and how the industry is going, especially with the focus on how the employment industry is going to shape up or slowly moving towards. I think we are moving towards more smarter and leaner way of working. And the reason why I say so is because in last 3 months we were trying to figure out what has happened to us. Now, after 3 months, more or less, we have realized that this is not a one-off situation, and this is going to stay, if not permanently. And hence, everybody across the corporate industry is trying to figure out what is the best possible way to work in this kind of crisis, and hence everybody is talking about smarter and leaner way of working. So when we talk about smarter, when we talk about leaner way of working, what are the things that we are looking at? First of all, definitely the remote working. Everybody across the industry, irrespective of the segment, everybody is focusing on the remote working, whether it is working from home or working from anywhere. People are focused on that. Second is, with this remote working, the physical absence uh, of the office actually have created a lot of overlap between the personal life and the professional life. So I think that's another area where everyone should now focus, that how do we create some amount of barrier between our professional life and the personal life, because what it is having an impact upon is definitely on the productivity, and secondly on the mental health. Today, because it's May Day and May is celebrated as the Mental Health Awareness Day, I would like to also discuss a little bit on the mental awareness that has actually come as a byproduct to the pandemic and to remote working, or maybe remaining in an isolated situation for so long. So all these have actually bottled up and have created a lot of havoc in the mental health of an employee, or not only an employee, for everybody. While I come to that in a little bit time, I think the second thing that everybody is discussing is on the innovation that we should actually adopt in various people model. So one definitely is on the remote working. Second is, can we also look at the people model and make it more adaptable to the new age working? So for example, whether we have more flexi working, whether we really introduce the concept of gig economy. I know gig economy is there in bits and pieces, but not as much prevalent as it is in other parts of the world. So can we really have the gig economy for the white collared employees? So this is something the HR professionals are also discussing. Third bit that is being discussed is the liquid manpower. Like, if we shift the people model from a fixed manpower to a liquid manpower, whereby one person takes more than one job, a true sense of multitasking, and we reduce on the headcount, yet do not impact on the productivity. So that's another thing that we are exploring. And of course, the last model that most of the industries are now exploring is on the part-time or sabbatical. So sabbatical is something that is there, but it was more utilized for upgradation of the educational qualification, or if someone was going for maternity. But today, with all the emerging policies that are coming, and with all the challenges that we are facing, I think the part-time working or the sabbatical is something also that needs to be looked into from a people model point of view. So while we talk about people model, it is very important that we actually prepare our workforce for all the changes that gets implemented, because at the end of the day, we are going to interact with the humans. And trust me, it is too much for a human being to undergo so much of change in such a little time. And I'm sure all of us are using our own coping mechanism to cope up with all the crises that are being thrown to us every day. Unending lockdown extension is also creating a lot of uncertainty to the whole situation, which is definitely creating a lot of havoc in the mental sanity. So it is important, especially as a leader, as an HR professional, as people who are leading the business, to understand that yes, this could be a byproduct of remote working, of remaining in an isolated situation for so long, having disconnected completely from the social interaction, and the fear of uncertainty, the fear of losing job, fear of job cuts, fear of not knowing where the world is going, and of course, over and above, the fear of getting infected with COVID-19. Definitely everything will bundle up and have some impact somewhere in the mental health. It is important that we realize, like a health issue, this is also an issue, and we give a patient hearing to anybody who reaches out to us, especially from an HR point of view. It is important that we engage people more closely so that they feel supported, and anything that has been raised around mental concern or mental health concern. So we should immediately address that and not create a taboo that the person is not ready to work, or the person is not in a position to work just because he or she is having some mental health issue. We should provide a lot of support so that they tide over the crisis, because it is, again, not everybody has the capacity and the capability to accept this amount of crisis. So I think these are the things I would start. And as we go today into the discussion, we will discuss more around what are the things that needs to be done, especially from an HR point of view. What are the policies that needs to be changed? I think with all the changes that are coming, it's very important that HR relooks at all the policies that are there, because what worked 6 months back will definitely not be relevant today, and hence it is important that the HR policies needs to be relooked at, made more digitized, made more automated, so that it is being relevant, and we keep on upskilling and upgrading our workforce, so that once the system gets upgraded, once the processes gets upgraded, everything around gets upgraded. The human should not fall behind. So they need to be also upgraded with proper training program, with proper skill development, with proper support system, so that there is the very coordinated and cohesive process between human and system in the organization. And at the end of the day, the organization and the economy and the industry doesn't collapse. So that's my introductory comment on the topic. I would hand it over to you, Mr. Mitra, to take it forward from here.
Indrani, just can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just share my screen for a time being. Just a second, there's a system problem. I'm just trying to help it. Give me 1 minute, please.
So is it technological disruption?
Something like that, Mr. Datta.
So while Mr. Mitra sets up the setup, I have already started getting questions. So Mr. Datta, do you have a minute? Because this question is directed towards you, and I will ask this question. You can answer this question during your session, but just I'll keep you updated that this question has come my way for you.
Yeah.
Can an employer lay off permanent staff as per appointment terms and conditions in this current situation?
For actually, the answer is in the ID Act. You have to take permission from the government for laying off. In West Bengal, if the number of workers is more than 100.
Okay. So the answer is yes, but you have to take the permission from the government.
Yes.
Yeah, irrespective of COVID or non-COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much. I believe Mr. Mitra has just shared the screen, so we should be there in a moment. Yes, there you are, Mr. Mitra.
Okay, thank you, Indrani. Thanks. Sorry for the initial glitches. Let me give you my perspective. I'll try to touch upon on economy, how it is going to move, and what is my understanding, how HR should look into the problem, and what should be done. Okay. Why I put this picture of a black swan, I think, according to me, the COVID-19 is really a black swan. And we often in English language use the word called unprecedented. But I think this unprecedented word goes very well with the COVID-19 really in its true sense, looking at the COVID-19 width, breadth, everything, and the spread of it. Now with COVID-19, India is under lockdown. We are into 60 days of lockdown, probably in a new form, it's going to get extended. There are a lot of projection which was there that, COVID-19 infections will move in this way, that way, etc., including the data which has been presented by University of Cambridge. But for India, nothing has worked out. Basically, it's COVID-19 is going in its own way. Now, what is going to happen with the COVID-19? If I look at United Nations report, the world economy is going to shrink by 3.2%. If I look at CII, the GDP growth is going to be between minus 9% to maximum it can go up to 1.5% GDP growth. Now, let me give you another data point in terms of economy. If you look at overall Indian GST collection in crores, so generally GST collections used to happen in India between 85,000 crore to 90,000 crore. Now, according to my information, it has gone, at least for the month of April and May, it is into 25,000 crore. So because of that, central government is not publishing any data. Now we have talked about, now we have learned a self-reliant India. Narendra Modi, Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister has talked about self-reliance India and Atmanirbhar Bharat. There's a huge number of, package has been declared, 20 lakh crore package has been declared, what we have heard, relief package. But let me give you some socio-economic update before I go into other directions. If I look at a Business Today published data, in most of the industries, there is a disruption. Now, disruption in terms of severity, disruption in terms of, only the nature of severity. But in case of construction, mining and quarrying, aviation industry, everything, the disaster, disruption, severity is complete. There's a huge lakh crore of loss estimated. And, I think high risk are airlines, airports, hotels, malls. Moderate risk are even auto industry, where I work. Low risk, there is a pharma and power. but there is no prediction when these businesses are going to come. According to me, I will give some highlights on it. Now, if you people look at the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, there is an organization in India who publishes the data in India. This is the data from them, and COVID-19 had created an unemployment rate which has jumped up to 23.5% in April 20. May is going to be increased further. This is problem number one. Now, another problem is that, our economy, if you look at, it's based on basically agriculture, and manufacturing is there, but mostly manufacturing is in unorganized sector. Now, if I give you another data, which also shares that our 75 to 80% belongs to informal sector. Only 20%, where from we are coming as an industry leaders and industry we are running, is very formal. In India, the economy lies on informal segment. Therefore, it's very important to give a focus on agriculture as well as an unorganized sector of unemployment. What is problem number two? Problem number two is, yes, we have heard a very fantastic, very huge, package. This is a welcome step. But if I give my study, MSME and NBFCs needs widespread enterprise support from government, that will become the real stimulus, which is still, I think, yet to come from the government. Migrant labor is a real problem. A lot of industries are going to face the after effect of COVID-19 also whenever we come back. And we have problem of medical support shortages, etc. in our country, in all the states. Now, how to revive? So let me give you a short-term view. A short-term view is how we can come out organized, safe, and sustainable way of reopening of lockdown. Government is gradually allowing some things to happen. I think that's the right thing. Reopening of lockdown is very important. A new mindset has to emerge, because we have to live with virus for next 12 to 18 months. A balance between safe and economic revival, that's the right approach. New principles, processes to be adopted, and safe distancing, masks are going to be the new normal. Second topic is manufacturing to open immediately. We have to keep our focus on health issues. Morale should be high. Simultaneously, what Indrani was mentioning, we have to protect the wages. I think government has a moral responsibility onto it. We have to protect the employment. If we can protect the employment, the recovery will be much, much faster. And I think government should look into how we can give direct benefit to the poor. Could be a cash transfer every 2-3 weeks, could be a 2,000-3,000 rupees, that's enough. Now, let me give you a long-term view after I spoke about short-term view. Yes, organizations, we are hearing diversification is happening from China. They want to come out of China, and it's not the rumor. I am a member in FICCI, I'm a member in CII, and we are having, very serious discussion on this topic. And it's a reality and a huge opportunity for India. Now, along with India, there are countries like Malaysia, Vietnam, Turkey, they are also competing to grab that opportunity. So we have to look into, to work as a joint team to get that opportunity. I think we have to try to fix the labor contracts. What Mr. Datta was answering the question on layoff, etc. Now, if we look at our system, 80% has got no protection with almost flexibility. If I talk about contract labors and everything, and all other forms of employment. Only the 20% complete protection with no flexibility. Now, if I give you my example of my company, in older company, we are paying 60,000, 70,000 salary, but no flexibility. I think trade union has to evolve. What I see, I think Mr. Datta will speak about labor laws, etc. But I personally, as a manager, as a HR professional, I would say, can we look into that chapter 5B can be removed from ID Act. It was not there in 1947, which was introduced during emergency in 1976. It may be appropriate at that point of time. Now we cannot run an industry of 2021 with the labor laws of 1950s. We can look into abolition or changes, transformation of Section 9A also under ID Act. Safety net for unorganized sector is must. Now we are going for a change in work culture. We are talking about work from home, but unfortunately in India, there is no labor law which talks about work from home. And I don't know if organization has given me a laptop, if it gets exploded while I'm working, under which law I'll get protection, or under which law company is going to give the protection compensation. Therefore, there is an immediate need of enactment of law. I think as a country, Philippines has a fantastic law on work from home. Can we follow that? How to revive long-term view? Yes, self-reliant India is fantastic, but we have to keep in mind that we cannot compromise on quality of product and protection. And we need committed minister, capable bureaucrats like Mr. Datta, and credible working solution, what can be done and what needs to be done. India has a huge opportunity in terms of economy. We are a 2.3 trillion economy, and if you look at CEO World Magazine data, CEO World Magazine is published from Australia, and that data tells that according to them, India is in 7th rank in terms of investment. Now, what is our role in HR? I think we need to inspect ourselves that do we understand free cash flow? Do I understand my role in getting free cash flow for the organization? If that is known to me, am I implementing the cash flow measures in my organization? How as an HR, I can help my organization? I think 5 things are important when I can help the organization. We have to focus in this time on organic as well as inorganic growth. Customer centricity and speed is the currency. Employee experience is the key. We need to follow a purpose-driven culture and proactive strategy-driven, and we have to always keep in mind how can we store cash, because cash is king. That's all from my side. Anything else, I can take the question answer session later. Over to Mr. Datta.
Thank you, Mr. Mitra, for this enriching presentation. Since I do not have any presentation, I will let my video start. So at first I will continue with what Mr. Mitra said, that from labor perspective, from labor point of view, this pandemic and this lockdown. Am I audible?
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So from labor perspective, this pandemic has actually, there are 3 learning from labor perspective. 3 areas opened up, and Mr. Mitra rightly touched upon those 3 areas. One is migrant labor. Second one is universal social security. And third is work from home. Now, if these 3 issues, we have to address these 3 issues, we have to keep in mind also that 4 labor codes are coming. One of the labor code has the code on wages that has already been passed by the parliament, and 3 other codes are lying with the parliament. And I would like to share with you that in the code on social security, there is a mention of gig worker, platform worker, home-based worker. So the basic structure is already there in the offing. But work from home, that Mr. Mitra rightly pointed out, we do not have any regulation, labor regulation, so far work from home is concerned. I think government is already looking after it, considering the fact, in yesterday's paper, the labor minister said that in the social security code, they will change the provision for migrant workers. There will be a centralized database which the central government as well as the state government will be able to access, and the migrant worker will get all the social security benefit, including ESI. Now, saying that, this is just in continuation of Mr. Mitra's presentation. Now I will give my perspective about this thing. First, I would like to congratulate NHRDN for framing such a positive topic. It does not at all say about pandemic or lockdown. The topic says new era. So I will be harping on that. Whenever we are in a crisis situation, we are in a different situation, we tend to fall back on our yesterdays when everything was in order. Today, we can see today as the day after yesterday, or we can see today as the day before tomorrow. Whenever we are talking about new era, we are actually thinking in terms of tomorrow. I think the whole pandemic lockdown can be thought of or perceived a bit differently in a more positive, optimist way. We can think ourselves as a caterpillar. And this pandemic and lockdown is basically the cocoon that we have entered. Now, if we struggle, if we think about reviving, recovering economy or whatever, we want to go back. Revival and recovery, to me, means going back to our previous state. Why can't we think of becoming a butterfly? Instead of struggle, whenever we become judgmental, we judge on the basis of our previous experience, previous learning, previous knowledge. We misjudge also. Why can't we consider this pandemic situation, this lockdown situation? This is throughout the world. We can re-examine our values. We can re-examine our priorities, see the desperation of the migrant laborers, not only poor, illiterate migrant workers, but the Indians who were staying abroad, the desperation of them to come back. It clarifies, the situation clarifies our priorities, that when death stares at us, when death becomes a distinct possibility, not something remote possibility, we want to be near our dear ones. We want to be with our family. There are many learnings. If you go through that social media, you will see that people are actually dancing, singing, and any other things. So we are maybe going back to our roots. So instead of recovery, instead of revival, I think we should try to discover the why of life, the why of business, the why of economy. GDP is meaningless. Why we need that GDP? Just maximizing profits is sufficient? Is it necessary? Is the organizations think about their vision statement, or they use their vision statement to maximize their profit? I think these are the questions that HR people, non-HR people, any people, whether in the organized sector or unorganized sector, should think about it. This is a God-given opportunity. This is not something irregular. This is not desirable, but still any change, any transformation, any metamorphosis gives us pain. I can see a new era can emerge if we think positively, if we re-examine our values, priorities, assumptions. This is my take on it. Afterwards, we will discuss. Thank you.
So, thank you, Mr. Datta. I think that is definitely a very, very different perspective that you have thrown into the whole discussion. So I really thank you for that. So I have one question for you, and then there are a couple of other questions from our viewers. But my first question is, what are the probable labor law changes that you foresee the government is going to bring to support the economy? Because we definitely agree that there is a big hit on the economy. So from a government point of view and from a labor law point of view, what are the changes that you foresee that the government is going to implement to address the economy?
That is already visible actually. Many states suspended labor laws for 3 years. They extended the working hours. These are the trends, but they could not do it till now. Now again, from labor perspective, what government will actually do? See, the decision making in government is very difficult. They have to think about the general population. They have to think about the lobby, different industry lobby, then trade union lobby. And it's a very complicated process. So what government do, that I cannot say. But what I can say is that think positively with a sympathetic heart. If you want to run your factory 12 hours, don't extend the working hours. Instead, decrease the working hours, increase the manpower. Again, I will harp on the basics of economics or business. What do you actually want to do? Only maximize profit? Only maximize profit? Whenever there are huge profit, I have seen in the newspaper, every quarter they publish that 30% growth in profit, etc., etc., etc. At that time, you do not think about the workers. Whenever there is a crisis situation, in fact, a few months back, there was slump in the auto sales. You cannot sell cars, and then you ask the government to help you out. Sorry for being direct. Don't take it personally. So I think we need to re-examine what we actually want. Again, the way the indoctrination is so strong, maximizing profit, utilizing every opportunity to maximize profit, that we may unwillingly, being unaware, we do these things. If there is a crisis, if we want to increase production, why can't we decrease the working hours and increase the number of workers? So government stand is, again, it is a very complicated thing, but government has already highlighted they're taking action so far. Unorganized workers are concerned, migrant workers are concerned. And in the new labor laws, there are many changes, many good things are there. What will ultimately happen, that situation will tell, because we are going through a historic situation. Tomorrow is uncertain, not only for you and me and all the participants, but the tomorrow is uncertain for the most powerful men on the earth also. This type of VUCA world, I do not think we have faced before.
So thank you very much. I think the next question is also directed towards you, Mr. Datta. Before I move to Mr. Mitra, I think I would ask you this question. And this has come from one of our participants, that ILO is interfering in, we see that ILO is interfering in our, with the proposed decision of changes and suspension of labor laws in India for economic growth. Does ILO have the right to interfere with the sovereignty of our country? What are your views on this?
A very good question. Actually, most of our labor laws has two sources. One is our constitution. There are many provisions in the constitution which speaks of labor rights. And the other is the ILO conventions. There are many conventions of the ILO in which India is a signatory. So it's an international commitment. That is why that gives ILO the right to not interfere, but intervene and remind India of its international obligation.
Okay, thank you so much. Next question is to you, Mr. Mitra. Just a minute. Yeah. So, can you see the question on the chat box? This has come on the 5 C's.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've seen the question, and it's not a question. I think it's a comment, and with that comment, anybody at this point of time will agree that you need to take care of the care, communication, control, and compliance, definitely, as well as the competency.
Okay, so I have one question for you, Mr. Mitra, that how and when, again, this is a prediction game. Do you think that the economy will be back in India? Do you have any specific timeline in your projection?
Okay, if I can give you the, people are talking about V-shaped economy coming up, U-shaped coming up. But what I can tell, with the current situation, that we have gone back to economy of 2010, 2012 from 2020. What I foresee, it is going to take at least 2 to 3 years to come back the economy at the current level. That's number one. Number two, what Mr. Datta was telling, that I belong to an auto industry, while Bosch manufactures apart from auto other things also. Auto industry was already into the slump. Now COVID-19, no car sell. is going to happen. Yeah, definitely our projection is there will be people will buy the car, but smaller car, because to maintain the social distancing. People will buy two-wheelers, two-wheeler sales will go up. But all these things, if you want to come back to a 2018 level, which was very high growth level, it will take at least 3 years.
Okay, and I think with that comes the next question that has been directed to me from Anvesha when I spoke about liquid manpower, that according to her, liquid manpower will reduce the employment opportunities for people. So what are my takes on that? I think that's the question that she had posted. But, okay, so the objective of implementing liquid manpower is not to reduce employment or not to reduce the employee number. The objective of the liquid manpower is to enable the employee to remain relevant in his or her employment. So that, because there are too many things, even before the pandemic hit us, the VUCA term was already there for last couple of years, and with the VUCA term there was another thing which was making the rounds, was with the digitization, automation, robotics, etc., will there be jobs? Will robotics, will automation take away jobs from people? Hence, the concept of liquid manpower was introduced. It is still at a very, very inception stage in the industry, where people are talking about one person doing more than one job, multitasking in its truest sense, and so that employees do not lose the job and they remain relevant. It is not about reduction of employment, it is about helping and enabling the employee to be on the employment.
Indrani, can I comment something on what you have told? Apart
Yes.
from that, I think just to give you clarity, what as a practicing HR professional, how I see the liquid manpower, etc. I think by 2025, 2026, let us forget about this permanent nature of employment. I think we will be heading towards a fixed term contract kind of thing. Definitely, as an investor who is going to come and invest in India, they will be investing much more money, but definitely they will look for flexibility. When business is bad, how they can come out of the business. Definitely what government should look into, that how they can protect the manpower with a higher compensation. The retrenchment compensation of 15 days salary for every completed year of service is not valid today. Can we increase 15 days to 60 days, 90 days? I don't know, because while employers should get the flexibility, but also human part has to be taken care of, and accordingly compensation has to be increased. That's my view, I think.
No, I think very pertinent point, Mr. Mitra, and while definitely, while I was talking on the topic, I definitely touched upon this fixed term contract and the gig economy. Gig economy is definitely not very common in the Indian scenario, but as we move towards a new era, I personally feel, and this is my personal view, I personally feel that gig economy is going to be more and more relevant to address the economic situation. Mr. Datta, there's another question for you. What are the remedial measures available for employers for those staff members who desert their services during this crisis, if at all?
No, yes, you can take remedial measures. You can initiate DP, charge sheet, whatever, disciplinary proceedings can be drawn, but you have to think why he deserted. You have to arrange for vehicles because public transport is not available. So these things has to be taken care of. And from HR perspective, we should try to understand the psychology of the workers who deserted. Don't be too harsh. Again, think about the migrant workers. They're coming on foot, 1,000 kilometers. They're ready to walk 1,000 kilometers. So the fear psychosis is there. So as a HR people, I think we should try to understand, empathize with that person and counsel that person to come to work. That is one approach. Technically, you can proceed with DP. You can take disciplinary action.
So with that, I come to the next question, which is very, very linked to the question that you just answered, Mr. Datta, is how long do we expect migrant labor to return to the industry? And there is another follow-up question is like, what will bring the migrant worker back from their villages to the cities with their jobs. So these are the two questions that are there, and I clubbed these two questions for the panel, and we can answer.
Yeah, that will be actually, I'm also eagerly looking what will happen next, because so far labor market is concerned, see, the restriction, the government at the same time, they are lifting up the restriction, relaxing the restrictions. They are allowing the industry to operate. And at the same time, they are allowing the migrant workers to return. So two situations. First, the industry will face a crisis of labor. I don't think they will return immediately. The fear psychosis is already there. And after returning to their home state, they will be quarantined. They will face harassment. So I don't think that they will return immediately unless the need is so, unless they have to choose between hunger and going back, then they may come. Otherwise, I don't think immediately they will come back. So now how the industry will tackle the situation, that is to be seen. They may go for local people more. Again, that will increase their, I think, wage cost. And again, the host state, after the return of the migrant workers, what will the host state do, the native state? That has to be seen also. In fact, the industry can utilize that manpower, those who have returned from other states. Now, it's a very fluid situation. Anything can happen. Let's see how things unfold. But it's a challenge for the industry, for the government, and for the migrant worker as well.
Thank you so much. I totally agree with you. And in the afternoon only today, there was an interview with a migrant worker who was moving from Mumbai. Every day we see somebody or the other is getting interviewed, and he was very clear. He was very upfront. He said that we are not going to come back. We will stay with families in our villages. We had come here, and he was from Mumbai. He was working in the Bollywood industry, and he was telling very clearly that there's no job here. If there's no job, why should we come here? We come all the way just for jobs. So now again, if the industry can actually give them that assurance, and few days back, there was a standoff between the Mumbai government, the Maharashtra government, and the UP government. The UP government wants to retain the migrant workers and will not allow them until the government gives the permission, where Maharashtra government says that you cannot enter unless and until you get our permission. So I think a lot of things will unfold, but it is very interesting. One thing is pretty clear, between now and next 6 months, we are not going to get these labors. Like, there will be a shortage of manpower. There will be, and we have to manage either with the local talent or we have to find out ways how do we handle that. I think that's my take on this whole situation.
Yeah, I think Q4 2021, we can expect migrant labor, and depends on how much kind of safety, etc. you are providing as an employer.
Correct. Next question is like, can HR resort to disciplinary action if a permanent workman is not joining his duty when the factory is operational and he is not responding to calls? I think it's plain simple. Yes, it will fall under the disciplinary thing, and they can do it. If the factory is operational and not responding, then it is insubordination. So yeah, it can be handled.
Look at, my recommendation will be, if he or she is not responding to the calls, I think as HR professionals, there's a moral responsibility to go into the details, whether he or she requires a support or not, and why he or she is not doing. I think an in-depth study is required, but weapons are always there available in our hand. But before putting that, I think we should take care of that part as well during this situation.
Exactly.
Okay. Another question, that in April 2019, Labour Codes Bill is due to be passed. Will that impact the changes and draft to be redone due to the corona pandemic?
Already the government has announced, yesterday I have seen that the social security of migrant labor will be changed. Something will be added, that there will be a national database of migrant workers. They will be able to register themselves there, and they will be provided social security, including ESI facilities. So I think there will be changes in the draft, because it is already pending before the parliament.
Okay.
The 3 courts.
There's one more question. Just give. Okay. What are the factors that are required to attract foreign investment so that our GDP grows? How does central and state government play a pivotal role on this? So, Mr. Mitra, would you like to take this question?
I think the objective is very common. It's the growth of the country. I think both government, state government and central government both jointly work together. Yes, they are working. I think political scenario, if both the people can set aside and look for the investment, that's number one. Number two, we have to be, yes, the foreign investments are only possible if you ask me why it is coming to Karnataka, why it is coming to Tamil Nadu. Since I have worked in most of the states, IR situation or labor loss problem, I would say West Bengal is in a much better state as of now, currently. There are much bigger problem in labor in case of Tamil Nadu, but there are people who are coming because of maybe land availability, maybe investment opportunities which are there, ease of operating business for those kind of things. Labor is not the only criteria, I can tell.
Okay. So there's one more question again directed towards Mr. Datta. Returning of migrants to our state where the industry scenario is too bad. How would state or the industry respond or act to it?
That we have to see. I think government will think about it, because I think UP government has already done that. They have done a skill mapping of the returnees. So the migrant workers actually is a pool of skill also. So government will surely think about it. Some skill will come up, because everybody is at present now busy with fighting COVID. So far migrant workers are concerned, instead of rehabilitating them, now the government's main concern is to get them checked, quarantined, etc. So the focus will automatically, after some time, government has to think about how to utilize them. I think again, this is an opportunity, as the name of this topic says, new emerging era. So emerging situation will give, I think, more opportunity for us to handle the crisis.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. I just have one last question, and we are almost, okay, it's already 6 o'clock. So the last question that we have from Neeraj is like, we can say this is one of the worst situation for emerging India. What are the most effective roles of HR? So I don't think it is only for emerging India, for the whole world. So I don't, yeah. So so thankfully in this crisis, we are all united, because I think we cannot point at anybody. Of course, we all can point at China, but there is no scientific reason to point towards China that they have created something like this. However, the most effective roles of HR, I think the HR role will be most effective in this crisis if we can play it properly, because for first 3 months we were actually trying to understand how do we move people from office, make them work from home, keep them stable, keep them secure, keep them safe, at the same time make the organization run. So all of it, we were working with the IT team, the admin team, the business team to ensure all of those. During these 3 months, we were trying to find out solutions around the work from home, because people are working from home, there should not be drop in productivity, their mental health, etc. should be in place. They should not be having any issues around all the isolation problems, etc., etc. So that was something that HR was focusing. Now the next challenge is, how do we bring them back safely to the workplace? What are the protocols that we actually implement in the workplace, whether it is from a safety, hygiene point of view, from a safe distancing point of view? What are the things that security, health, so that the safety and the security of the employees are absolutely maintained, and second, the business as a whole is not getting impacted. I think HR role was never as exciting as this before, and I think we have to again act to the situation. Like, we cannot think what has happened yesterday. We have to see that this is something that is going to stay. That is something that is permanent, and we have to redesign, revise all our policies so that it is customized to the need. With that, I would definitely like to put my thanks to Mr. Mitra, and of course, Mr. Yu.
May I add one sentence?
Yes,
regarding
yes,
the last
absolutely.
regarding HR's role. Let us think HR as HB. Instead of treating workers and other employees as human resource, can't we think them as human beings? Because whenever we think about resource, we try to utilize that. Even with our own resource, time is a resource, so we try to utilize that. We try to get maximum out of it. Can't we shift the focus, our perspective?
Absolutely.
Human beings are human beings. Let them treat as human beings. Thank you.
Very good point. I think with that positivity, we end the session today. I would like to thank you, Mr. Datta, Mr. Mitra, NHRD Kolkata, and everybody from NHRD Kolkata, Abhijit, Shweta, Arthalata, everybody who had taken the pain to organize this session. Thank you very much. Thank you all the participant viewers for sending so many questions and keeping this as an interactive session. We would definitely continue to have your feedback, and any questions that you might have, you can post it so that we can answer you if required. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Logging out.